All right. All right, my friends, thank you for waiting. Okay, ambassadors, do you see our slideshow?
Yes.
Okay, I want to thank the space ambassadors for giving me a chance to really to give the opportunity for some of these students to present. Harriet, Paul, Celine, and Finley are presenting tonight. A couple of these are rookies, a couple are old pros. So I'm going to let them present tonight. And if you're ready, Finley, I will turn it over to you. Kids, when it's your turn, please make sure you unmute yourself. Most common mistake we make, right? And Finley, are you ready?
Yes, so ambassadors, thank you so much for attending this presentation tonight. As Mr. Simmons said, my name is Finley Strauss. I'm a 7th grade member of the Wolfpack, and tonight we'll be sharing about our team, and we hope to have a really great discussion regarding what our small but really proud satellite team has accomplished this year. However, first, I'd like to let my colleague Paul Kiesling discuss a background on the Wolfpack.
Paul, you with us? Paul, we see you. Can we hear you? Is that the problem?
Testing.
Yes. Yes, we hear you now, Paul. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry about that. So, thank you for having us here. My name is Paul. And so today, well, first I'd like to start with what the Wolfpack, give a brief overview of what the Wolfpack has done over the past year. So even though COVID-19 came upon us, we were still able to work on our projects through the use of online Zoom meetings like this one. So we would have weekly meetings and we would continue working on everything we're doing. So we were still able to make progress in everything. And one of our major accomplishments over the past year has been achieving our 501c3 status, which has made it much easier for us to secure donations because it makes it tax deductible to everybody who donates to us. So that was a really great thing that happened this year. And furthermore, this year we've placed a very large focus on helping other developing teams build their own CubeSats and guide them through the process of submitting proposals to NASA and just overall building a CubeSat team. We've been working with teams in Nebraska and North Carolina, and we were actually able to help Nebraska be selected by NASA's CubeSat launch initiative. So they're going to start building a CubeSat that will be launched, hopefully launched in the next 3 years. And we were also able to submit 3 proposals of our own, which we're waiting for word back for NASA. So going back to the basics, of course, building a CubeSat is a very hard thing to do. And so what we like to do is use high altitude balloons in order to get students familiarized with many of the different equipment that could be used on a CubeSat, primarily the radios, because we use the same radios for the high altitude balloon, as well as our CubeSats. And it also uses the same telemetry dashboard, as you can see on one of the photos to the right. So students are able to learn how to analyze the data. And then, so going back, our first CubeSat, the WiSat-1, was launched on December 3rd, 2018. And so we actually started the process in 2016 when we were selected by NASA to build this. Then we went through all the phases of building a CubeSat satellite, development, certification, testing, integration. And then we were eventually able to launch it aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. And then we went through all of its operational phases. And now here is Celine to talk about the CubeSat-1, which is our second satellite.
Thank you, Paul. In 2019, CubeSat-1 was chosen during the 10th round of the CubeSat launch initiative. CubeSat-1 was the only CubeSat chosen from the K-12 organizations and was among 16 other proposals selected nationwide. The payload of CubeSat-1 is simply to evaluate a novel electrical power system. We will be flying a 1U CubeSat with capacitors as the payload. They're going to be tested to see if they can replace lithium-ion polymer batteries. and CubeSat 1 is scheduled to launch in 2022. The Lunar Rover team within the Wolfpack are focused on being the first school-age team to the moon with a rover. We had originally planned to develop the rover by 2023, but development has taken longer than initially planned. The rover has evolved from the earliest group of Wolfpack students who wanted to put a rover on the moon. The purpose of a rover mission is to evaluate technologies to mitigate the adhesion of charged lunar dust to photovoltaic cells. This sticky dust will lead to lower efficiency in converting sunlight to electrical energy on the photovoltaic panels. While we were originally looking at the Northern Hemisphere's Lacus Mortis, which was Astrobotic's peregrine landing site, our slip schedule will result in a different landing location. Presently, there's a lot of interest in lunar South Pole around the Shackleton crater. We are considering other rides to the moon, and if you have any suggestions for secondary payloads going to the moon, we are happy to look into them, so please let us know. The Lunar Rover group of students represent those with the most experience, but everybody needs to start from somewhere, and almost all of us on the team started from a zero baseline. New students who are interested in aerospace began with our space club, and now Harriet will share more with you about our beginners class.
Good evening. My name is Harriet Gu, and currently I am in 6th grade. Today, as Celine said, I will be talking to you about Space Club. When Space Club began, we did an exercise called CAPCOM. CAPCOM is the exercise of communication in space, as ground control will communicate to astronauts on how to repair a broken part of their rocket. Speaking of rockets, we also learned a bit about rockets, such as Starship, New Glenn, and Saturn V. Around the time we did the Capcom exercise, we also learned about Bernoulli's principle, which states the slower a liquid is going, the more pressure it will give off. We also talked a bit about the lift equation, which says the coefficient of drag times the density times velocity divided by 2 multiplied by the surface area is equal to the lift force of an object. Around the time we talked about the lift force, we also talked about the kinetic energy formula, which said that 1/2 of mass times velocity squared is the kinetic energy of an object. In Space Club, we were split into 2 groups. Each group was to work together amongst ourselves and design a mission. We would choose the goal of our mission, the destination of our mission, the rocket we would use for our mission, and whether our mission was crewed or uncrewed, which meant whether we used humans or robots. Space Club graduates are eligible to join Wolfpack. Currently in Wolfpack, there are 3 proposals were submitted to NASA. Here is Celine with information about those proposals. Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet. Every year we submit proposals to NASA's CubeSat Launch Initiative competition. Recently, on October 16th at Kennedy Space Center, Wolfpack students presented their 3 CubeSat proposals at the preliminary design review before submitting them to NASA in mid-November. NASA requires we conduct a feasibility and technical merit review before we can submit to them, and we use an engineering preliminary design review to meet both of these requirements. Our proposals were all between 100 to 110 pages long, and each group was tasked with developing an idea for potential CubeSat mission. Wolfsat 1's proposal was to investigate a specific type of bacteria's rate of plastic degeneration on orbit versus 1G. We think that creating a sustainable food ecosystem in space will require ecological friendly decomposition and reuse of plastics. Wolfsat 4's proposal was to investigate the use of metal oxides to aid in further protection from space radiation. As we send smaller spacecraft deeper into space, and especially beyond the Van Allen radiation belts, galactic cosmic radiation and solar activity present real design challenges to CubeSat-sized vehicles. Finally, Wolfsat 5's proposal was to characterize the viability of rhizobacteria in space. Again, if humans are to become a spacefaring species, we will need to successfully and sustainably grow numerous types of plants to provide nutritious foods and potentially medicines. Rhizobacteria research will help us do just that, and NASA will announce the winners of this year's competition in late March. While designing, building, and testing CubeSats are our main priority, here's Finley to talk about our outreach efforts.
Thank you, Celine. So one thing I really love about being on the Wolfpack is collaborating and reaching out to younger students and helping them learn STEM. People who have developed a STEM identity can be described as those who think about themselves as science learners and develop an identity as someone who knows about, uses, and contributes to science. So the Wolfpack always tries to reach out to students at a younger age, like in Space Club, to help build the STEM identity. This is done by participating at events like Engineer It, STEM Fest, and more. Students have created an activity book and a coloring book that is passed out at all of these events. The Wolfpack students have also authored a children's book that is on Amazon. All profits from all sales go to buying CubeSat hardware. The Wolfpack realizes how lucky the team is because they're able to work on such high-level STEM projects. And speaking of these high-level STEM projects, I'd like to discuss the conferences that the Wolfpack participates in. So personally, my favorite part of being on the Wolfpack is the presentations and conferences that we get to attend all over the world that are shown on the tables. For example, in October, the Wolfpack presented in Dubai for the International Astronautical Conference. Some other conferences and events that the Wolfpack has participated in include conducting more than 25 meetings during AIAA Congressional Visits Day, a successful submission to the Edison Awards, presentations made all over the world, and more. Nowhere are students ages 10 to 18 getting these wonderful opportunities. Now, I'd like to let Paul discuss the philosophies utilized by the Wolfpack and conclude this presentation. Thank you.
Hi. So in order to accomplish everything that we've done, we employ an educational philosophy known as blue sky learning. So blue sky learning is essentially taking a major goal and showing students that even if there's a major goal such as launching a CubeSat or presenting at international conferences, if they employ a growth mindset, anything can be accomplished. So the main focus of this is creating a student's growth mindset. And that really focuses on making sure the student knows that they're not limited to what they've done in the past, but they should be in continually pursuit of growth and accomplishing more than what they've done the day before. And so this growth mindset significantly helps to accomplish major goals. But another thing that we place a strong focus on is teamwork and creativity. So in order to accomplish large goals such as CubeSats, it's obviously not an individual project, but it requires collaboration amongst many different individuals and effective teamwork. And so one of the ways that we do this is through co-opetition. And one of the best examples of this is actually when we're coming up with ideas for our proposals to NASA's CubeSat launch initiative. So at first, each student's trying to make their own ideas, and they want to make the best idea possible that we will submit to NASA. However, once the ideas are chosen that we'll submit in that given year, all the students come together and they put their very best effort into making the best proposal that we can for NASA's CubeSat launch initiative. And so the blue sky learning really helps students realize that not even the sky's the limit. And this can help address a major problem in America today due to the break in the STEM pipeline. Because essentially what happens is students may have an interest to pursue a career in STEM or aerospace at a very young age. However, due to the lack of educational framework that's put in place in the middle and high school, students lose that interest since there's not a good way to keep on learning about aerospace and getting hands-on educational experiences. And a large part of this is because many students don't believe it's possible to do things such as launch CubeSats. However, with the use of blue sky learning, students realize that anything's possible. And so with that, we'd like to thank you for letting us present, and we're now open to any questions that you guys have.
Well, that was very interesting, and thank you very much for presenting to us. You are inspirational in many ways, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Stephen. I know Celine asked a question. As our Lunar Rover program is 10 times more expensive than our satellites and 100 times harder to pull off. So we missed our first window with the Peregrine lander. But if you have the in with a nice secondary ride to Shackleton Crater, we'll gladly, set up a time to meet with you individually. And if you can offer any advice, we welcome that. And of course, any questions.
Well, Kevin, I do have an idea, which I'll discuss with you offline. I did a paper for the Kepler Space Institute at one point that talked about the energy required to extract certain resources. And a couple of surprises came up. Some of the oldest materials that mankind has ever used are actually easier to process, and they're available on the moon: glass and iron. So talk with you more about that offline.
Okay, thank you.
I
Anybody
just
else?
want to tell you guys, I was incredibly impressed, and I'm always looking to hire people like you guys.
That's outstanding. I will point out that Harriet is 10 in the 6th grade. I believe Celine might be 15, 16 in the 10th grade, I believe. And so the kids range from about 10 to 16 mostly. And Finley, 7th grader, she actually is co-author of her first book, the one that they mentioned, which is on Amazon, which is about the ISS and the first stage return of the Falcon 9. There she is, shamelessly advertising. Available on Amazon. If she was really smart, she'd put the link in the chat box for you. But yeah, so the kids have, the secret, I think, to a great team is they all get to scratch the itch, whatever it is. The artists get to draw, the writers write, presenters present. Some kids are pretty good at organizing and being managers. So thank you, guys. I appreciate the opportunity for the team tonight.
Excellent. I was also very pleased to hear that one of your efforts is to educate the younger students. I sincerely applaud that.
Yes, it's no 5-year-old's gonna think I'm they're much more drawn to a 12-year-old, right, than a 50 whatever. So that's they're really good at museums. We do these STEM outreach events at museums. The books, the coloring books, the activity books, everybody's doing their part. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Simmons, I put a question in the chat, but I just wanted to go ahead and ask. I was wondering how each of these students plan to continue their STEM education and their career.
Great question. Let's let them share. If you want to know specifically about those kids, I will tell you this. When I started down here, the very first group of kids were in the 7th grade. They're in college now. And there's about 4 of them that are in engineering or theoretical physics at Chapel Hill. One's at Johns Hopkins. One actually is already in law school. He got his bachelor's in high school at the same time, and he's at UPenn in law school. Hey, you can't win them all, right? And but I would encourage Celine, then Paul, then Finley, and Harriet. We'll go from oldest to youngest, and just why don't you share what your ambition is? And thank you, Andy, for the question.
So when I graduate high school, I plan to major in aerospace engineering and minor in music. And I'm looking at going to the University of Alabama in Huntsville.
A good choice.
So I'm Paul, and so my high school, I'm currently in the 9th grade, and the high school that I go to actually has a really good physics program. So I plan to continue with that. And then once I graduate high school and go to college, I'm planning on majoring in something like aerospace engineering or astrophysics. And then from there, I'd love to work in the space industry. And I'm particularly interested in like extraterrestrial life and building space settlements.
That's awesome.
Paul is actually at Exeter in the Northeast. He actually won, and he competed to go to a very prestigious boarding school, and he really busted his tail for the 3 years I taught him in middle school. So thank you. And that brings us to, where are we to? Finley.
Yeah, Finley. So much to Mr. Simmons' disappointment, I love building CubeSats. I love working in aerospace, but I'd like to go to college and major in law, and then I'd like to go on to law school and be a space law lawyer. So still sort of in the aerospace field, but I'd like to focus on the legislative aspects of aerospace and law.
Still very important.
That's a good goal.
I guess I have one word of advice for your students, Kevin, and that is that life throws us some interesting opportunities and interesting surprises. And I know of a lot of aerospace engineers who graduated, thought they were going to be designing aircraft and never got the chance to do that, but they had other opportunities in their careers. And there's a lot of other math majors that end up becoming engineers and physicists
Right.
that never studied it. So
You sound like Ken Ruffin's interview where he started out in one direction. He still ended up in engineering, so we still count that as a win. Anything STEM is still a win.
that's right.
Harriet, do you want to share very quickly what you'd like to do? We know you're 10, you might change your mind, but what are your plans?
Honestly, I don't know. I haven't planned my future yet. I still hope to be involved in aerospace and STEM when I grow up, but I still haven't decided on a permanent career yet.
That's very okay.
Yeah, that's right. And don't worry about rushing to make a decision. It's a big, wide, wonderful world out there, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity in the space industry. So hang in there and just do your best. And thank you for being here.
All right, that concludes our part of this, and I'll turn it back over to the raspy but eloquent Stephen Akerley.
Thank you. Well, actually, that really concludes our meeting, and we're getting done a little bit early. That's good. At least for me, it's good, so that I can sign off before my voice quits altogether. Next month, Mark, you're on board for your presentation, and we're looking forward to that. And thank you for being there. All right, so without any further ado, good night, everybody. Have a happy new year. Be safe, please, and continue your good works. Okay, good night.
Thank you
Good night,
all.
everyone. Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, students, for your presentation. It was great.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a great
Jim.
rest of the evening.